Born into a freezing, one-room log cabin in the dead of winter, Abraham Lincoln began his life with nothing, no shoes on his feet, and a floor made of dirt. It is difficult to connect those beginnings with this face, the man who would eventually prevent the total collapse of the United States. Thomas and Nancy Lincoln were destitute frontier farmers who moved their family into the untamed Kentucky wilderness in 1809, living in a space no larger than a modern shed. When Abraham was 9, his mother contracted milk sickness. He watched her die in that cabin without a doctor, medicine, or any comfort to ease her final hours. This level of early, profound grief creates a psychological vacuum. Some children surrender to that despair, but Lincoln began to internalize it, using the void to build an early, quiet resolve. When his father remarried, a woman named Sarah Bush Johnston entered the household. She looked at the boy and saw a dormant intelligence that his father ignored, and she began placing books in his hands. Compared to the elite politicians of his era, Lincoln's formal training was non-existent. While his peers spent over a decade in classrooms, Lincoln had less than 1 year of formal education in his entire life. He spent his nights reading by the low light of a fireplace and walked for miles across the frontier just to borrow law books from neighboring towns. This total exclusion from the educational system meant he never learned to rely on tutors or established dogmas. He was forced to build his own analytical framework from scratch. In his 20s, he lost his first love, Anne Rutledge, to typhoid fever. The grief triggered a period of depression so deep that his friends took away his pocketknife, fearing he might take his own life. He continued to move forward, eventually marrying Mary Todd and attempting to establish the stable family life he had lacked as a child. But success remained elusive. He launched businesses that went bankrupt, faced crushing personal debts, and lost a series of local and national elections. These failures meant that when he finally spoke to the public, he didn't use the flowery academic language of the coastal elite. He used the plain, rhythmic speech of a man who knew exactly what it felt like to lose. This resonated with an American public that was also struggling. They didn't see a polished politician. They saw a survivor who spoke with the authority of someone who had already endured the worst. After his election in 1860, the country began to disintegrate before he could even take the oath. 7 southern states seceded, forming the Confederacy and challenging the very existence of the Union. The crisis became a war, here at Fort Sumter. In April of 1861, Confederate forces opened fire, forcing Lincoln to lead a nation that was now actively killing itself. Over 620,000 Americans would die in the coming years. The mental burden of these losses was so heavy that Lincoln's face aged decades in a single term. This document, the Emancipation Proclamation, shows the moment Lincoln turned a political dispute into a direct strike against slavery. His hand trembled as he signed these lines. He waited for his arm to go still, knowing the permanence of the ink. A man who hadn't spent his life surviving personal tragedy might have been crushed by this level of bloodshed, but Lincoln's history of enduring failure had prepared him to carry the weight of a fracturing country. When victory finally came in 1865, Lincoln did not call for retribution. He asked for charity for all, seeking to bring the South back into the fold rather than treating it as a conquered enemy. 5 days after the war ended, that vision was interrupted. Lincoln was shot in the back of the head while watching a play here at Ford's Theater. He died the next morning, fulfilling a tragic arc that saw him save the nation only to be taken the moment it was secure. We have since memorialized him with these modern monuments, placing his image in the center of our capital. His face is now part of the geography of the country, carved 60 feet high into the granite of Mount Rushmore. The boy who started on a dirt floor died having saved the Union and ended slavery. His life remains the evidence that our beginnings do not have to dictate our endings.